Hello everyone, we are Khadija and Maida, and today we'll present our work, SKULPT, a data-driven facial reconstruction pipeline. This project was done by members of the AI Experience Lab at KAIST in collaboration with the National Forensic Service of Korea and the National Institute for Mathematical Sciences. So SKULPT is a data-driven pipeline for forensic facial reconstruction. SKULPT combines a reinforcement learning agent for skull landmarking with multi-stage face generation pipelines, and it shows significant promise in enhancing both accuracy and efficiency in the reconstruction process. The aim of this work is to automate forensic facial reconstruction from skull images. While previous approaches have addressed this problem, they often rely on manual input, tissue depth data, or complex skull-to-face mapping strategies that require extensive modeling. For example, Jia et al. Used geodesic grid to encode craniofacial geometry, generating faces through a statistical model, while Liang et al. Incorporated statistical tissue depth modeling into its pipeline. In contrast, our method avoids direct skull-to-face mapping. Instead, it matches skulls with similar skulls and faces with similar faces, using only anatomical landmarks without requiring tissue depth data. The dataset used for this study comprises a total of 552 skull face pairs of CT scans of the South Koreans, courtesy of National Forensic Service of Korea. And the data was organized by age group, 20s to 60s, and gender, male or female. And an example here can be seen on the slide, and the eyes were blurred for confidentiality reasons. The pipeline gets initiated by automatically landmarking with the reinforcement learning agent, the skulls, with the 20 predefined landmarks chosen based on the topography of the skulls in the dataset. And the predicted landmarks get preprocessed to make them invariant to translation, rotation, and scale.
And now we're going to move on to the pipeline. In our pipeline, we basically conduct an ablation study of sorts with 4 different conditions that are given by the green check marks on the screen: 3D average, 3D SD, where SD stands for stable diffusion, 3D 2D average, and 3D 2D SD. So getting into the pipeline itself, we start with the input skull, which we know the BMI, we know the gender, and we know the age group like we've discussed before. And then we proceed to match the skull with skulls from the database based off of the landmarks that we discussed before, and we get K-matched skulls using the Euclidean distance between the landmarks. Once we have these K skulls, we fetch their K faces. And this is where the first condition comes in, which is 3D average, in which we use all of these matched faces and we simply geometrically average them using Facer, which is an open source library for geometrically averaging facial images in particular. Then the second part of this is called 3D SD, where, like I said, stable diffusion. And this is done by taking the output of 3D average and giving a user prompt where the user could ask for features such as facial hair, hairstyle, hair color, etc. A realistic image, stable diffusion generated, is output. Then we have the third condition, which is called 3D 2D average. For this, once we have those K faces, for each of those faces, we go ahead into a 2D dataset of images. And in this case, we used all ages faces, which is an open source data set of Asian faces. And then for each of these matched faces, we go ahead and get N matches from the 2D data set. And this is done by Procrustes distance. Now, once we have this K by N matrix, we go ahead and filter it to get the images that are actually relevant based off of the BMI and the gender. So now we have a list of M images, and these are averaged again using Facer to generate the 3D 2D average face. Then the final condition is 3D 2D SD, where we take, once again, the output of the 3D 2D average, and given a user prompt, a realistic stable diffusion generated image is output. And the results of these 4 conditions can be seen on the screen over here. In order to give you a better comparison, in addition to giving the ground truth in the form of the CT scan like we discussed before, we've also acquired the photographs of some of these people. And upon visual inspection alone, you can see that 3D 2D average is the most perceptually similar, especially for the first and second, whereas the stable diffusion generated images are a little bit more realistic and they retain some of those human features. Now, once we had our results, we went ahead and evaluated them, and we did this in two ways. The first one was the user evaluation, for which we conducted an online survey, a screen cap of which you can see over here, where we essentially gave them one of the four conditions, a reference image, and we gave them two faces that they had to pick from. One was real, obviously, and the other one was picked to be a super easy false image. And this was done with 20 non-experts and 4 forensic experts. Now, the results of this can be seen in the box plot here. Once again, we've put the conditions and like the respective images for just to remind you guys which one is which. And as you can see that the 3D 2D average, the second one, is the most right skewed, and then also it has the highest mean out of 10. So we've kind of established that it is perhaps our best performing one. And which is why when we went ahead and conducted the second evaluation with similarity scores, we chose 3D 2D average to conduct this on. And what we did here was we used 5 different metrics that are established in the field to be useful metrics for basically comparing if two faces in particular, belong to the same person. And these are LBIBs, Deep Faces, DLIB, FaceNet 512, VG16, and then face recognition. Now, what we did was we had 5 pairs of generated image and photograph, as you can see on the screen right here, and they were considered to be a match, belonging to the same person, if the score was above a certain threshold. And this threshold was decided within the metric, so it's predetermined. And the percentage match over here basically refers to the percentage of these 5 pairs of images that were successfully matched. And for us, came out to be a good 76%, which was pretty satisfying for us. So in order to conclude our presentation today, SKULPT minimizes manual labor by relying solely on skull and face landmarks for facial reconstruction, and we combine various techniques such as deep RL for landmark detection, facial averaging, and stable diffusion-based methods in SKULPT. We also go ahead and conduct comprehensive evaluations, both with users, which we believe we are the first of our kind to do so, and similarity metrics. And we present to you our best contribution in the form of 3D 2D average, which in particular shows great promise in achieving perceptually plausible and anatomically consistent reconstructions. Thank you.